Okay, so we're gonna come up with a plan to improve teacher quality in action. I think the thing we should do to improve teacher quality is, increase classroom management. Because if the teacher has even moderate to strong classroom management, it'll help in retention. So maybe, not so many teachers are feeling burnt out and leaving. They can increase teacher morale, which overall would improve the school culture. So we need to come up with some steps on how we can improve classroom management overall. My first idea was just professional development. And engaging professional development, because if we sit through not engaging, non-relevant, then it's not gonna make a difference. We're gonna keep having the same problems. So an engaging professional development on classroom management and providing resources, the resources teachers need. Y'all have any ideas on what a teacher may need?
I think simple as why we need the same rules,
Okay.
the same consequences, to follow the rules and teach, teachers to be consistent and fair.
Right, is there a discipline plan?
That's what I'm saying.
Like for the
We need a discipline.
classrooms? We don't-
No, we
we
don't
don't
have
have
a
one,
discipline
okay.
plan.
And
Okay.
like after two, if you do show this behavior in the classroom twice, the third time you go to the office, and there is an actual consequence for you going to the office. Instead
And
of the
also
teacher.
with the disciplinary plan, we need disciplinary write-up sheets, forms to fill out. So,
That's
you're
a good
not
idea.
writing it down with carbon copy, we don't.
You don't have any?
No, we don't have one.
The documentation is good, within ourselves to show that for personal, but having it forms to where we can have the documentation, is just, just as good and consistent.
And it needs to be something that's electronic,
That's, yeah.
so that way when a teacher is writing that documentation down, if the child has to go to the office, it won't be so much like, let me interrupt class to figure out what happened.
Mhm.
It would be, let me go into Google Sheets or where, or
So it
Skype
needs to
or
be
whatever
like
it is.
a
And then you have a
that
whole learning
everyone has
record.
access, or that the teacher and admin
And
have access to.
Why didn't you tell me?
And I think a lot of times the special teachers and the IAs need to access
They
it.
do.
Yeah.
Whoever's in that student circle that they're dealing with every day.
Okay. So we need to make sure we have the resources for those to happen, like use Google Docs or whatever, and everyone, like you said,
That's
within the
good.
student circle
Good.
has, access to it, to the documentation. Okay, any other, resources or ideas
I think we
within the
need
classroom?
maybe a space in each classroom for those students who really can be calmed down in the classroom.
Okay.
There's just not a designated space for them to do that too. In some classrooms, there may be, but, newer teachers might not know about.
A safe place.
A
A
safe
safe
Calm
place or
place.
a calm down corner, okay? Within the classroom.
Because a lot of times teachers rely on each other,
Mm.
and so they'll send that student out. But
Right.
what ends up happening is that student will respect that other teacher.
Right.
Or just act up to be with that other teacher.
Yeah, and that happens a lot.
Versus staying with their.
And a lot of times the teacher doesn't wanna deal with the behavior, not so much as,
And they send them out.
it's
every
not so
Friday.
much as, not so much as not knowing how or being resourceful, but just not wanting to deal with the behavior and sending it out to someone else, sending the child out to someone else instead of implementing what they learned.
The behavior plan, yes.
Yes, and consistency in what they learned instead of pushing it off on somebody else.
Okay.
That's where that training comes in place, though. We have a good, hands-on training that really touches on the type of students that we have at our campus. You will see the benefits of it, but we have to have a good training that is, real life scenarios of what we deal with, not textbook scenarios, but what we deal
Hands-on.
with. Yes.
Hands-on.
So the professional development, so know it can pertain specifically to our campus
Yes.
should be given by teachers who we know to have strong
Yes.
classroom management. So instead of like bringing in an outside resource, have these teachers do it, be like, look, this is what it's like here, this is what we can do. Okay.
Right.
Here.
And, you know, you gotta tie in some science-based, some research-based something with it.
Yeah.
Cause, you know, it's just a different ballgame.
And then as far as resources we may need, I know I've had a situation where a child had ADHD, but I didn't know that because no one bothered to tell the teacher. So it would be nice that to get this information not only from the parent, but from the nurse, or from whoever else that student might be working with. So that way we are aware, because I think I've had experiences where that's happened. We had a student who was diagnosed with autism. So I'm thinking that this child.
Outside, cause you know the school doesn't take the outside diagnosis.
Right.
And if the school doesn't give the paperwork from the doctor for the ADHD, they don't even acknowledge it, okay? So if the parents tell the school that the kid has ADHD, but they don't, send over the documentation, they don't even, acknowledge that the child has, that we deal with it too, though.
And these are things we need to know before we're calling that child a behavior,
Yeah.
when they actually have a diagnosis.
Yes, and make sure that parents send that information out.
Yes. If, sometimes the parents say they have, but they don't actually
Well,
have
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes
Yeah.
they have
And
it,
sometimes
and
they
then the
have it.
paperwork wasn't,
Yes.
it was lost in the shuffle, that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
With me.
Okay, so a good quality, research-based, but relevant professional development, providing resources such as the Commandant Corner before, you know, it has to go to administration. And then when it does get to the point of administration, a running record
Yes.
of documentation, okay? And I think another thing we can do is provide mentors. We have the mentor teachers to new teachers, but like a mentor within your team. Because even though some teachers have been here longer, they still may not be strong in the area of classroom management. So having somebody on your team that you can go talk to and receive help from would be good. Y'all like that, or?
That's great.
Cause we gotta stop taking the kids. We gotta start helping them deal with the kids in the class.
And
Yeah.
What I was dealing with, it becomes overwhelming.
Very
Because you wanna be able to support for that person, but then they may take it as, you know, as I was just saying earlier, instead of me having to deal with it, then I'll just send the child to this person. And it becomes overwhelming regardless of that person's strength to be able to deal with the behavior.
And then,
What are you doing as a teacher to make it work?
Sometimes you need that, not to cut you off, Jones. Sometimes you need that admin support. I mean, some
That has
teachers,
to
some
be.
of these kids they have severe behavior problems. And sometimes you need that backup to help deal with the parents and some real consequences for the behaviors, cause some of them, is some extreme behaviors. And I think that's a lot of what is, making us not be able to retain teachers. Because
And
the
with this
behaviors
school
are
being,
extreme.
with this school being as large as it is with as many students, the admin that's there isn't enough.
It could-
I don't think so. I mean, it can be, but I just don't think that I don't think that it's
It
enough.
could be.
Or at least another or somebody, because you have so many kids that if you have, what, 10 or 12 or 5 or however many, and they're having a moment.
But we have a safety team that doesn't get utilized, we've been,
Okay.
you know, you got the CPI, you have all of that.
See, I was like, okay.
Well, but it
Cause
has
it's
not
like,
been,
okay, I didn't know.
So we have a
the
lot of
roles.
resources, but it's no plan, for those people. you
so
know?
we need to implement a plan
Yes,
to use
yes.
the resources.
And then they also, tried to get us a behavior teacher, y'all was, and, you wouldn't have to be as fed to be able to go to the behavior person, y'all. And they wanted the funds to be split between SPED and here to pay for the person. We need that though.
And back to the safety team, when I was in the safety team, they would say a color. If they say orange, you knew that they needed help somewhere.
I remember
You
that.
would go
in Head
to,
Start.
you would go to that room and help. That was the whole point
But you know,
of the safety team, because the safety team had the training and restraints and all that different stuff and how to get the child out of the room, especially when they're destroying the room.
but the safety team, you know, I think it's a good idea. The people that's on the safety team can't even leave like that, like PE, like me, like you
Y'all are all in
have kids,
positions
yeah, so
where
how
you have
do you,
kids on
yeah,
that.
so how do you, you know, send your kids back to bed, but they don't tell us anyway, you know? So,
Yeah.
that's something
We
to
need procedures on how to use our
Yes.
safety team.
And or to
And then have it
revamp
implemented.
safety
Yeah.
team.
Not just
So-
have yeah, what you're saying, yes, but also having it implemented. So many times we have things put in place or not, but then is it being utilized, you know, to support the teachers?
right,
It's
And the
just
child
very
behavior.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's just very
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
cause
Okay.
it could be a
And
good
with all the
resource.
stuff that's going on in schools, we need to exercise all these,
Mhm.
teams and committees and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
They need to be utilized.
Yeah.
Correct.
And if, I'm glad you mentioned that, 'cause we don't have classroom management under control, then what happens if it's art school?
right,
How are we gonna
Yeah.
keep our students?
They
Yeah.
gonna run like those other kids that
Yeah.
run and didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
That's true.
That's important.
And they should stress buddy room. It's okay to have a buddy room implemented, but that child stay in your buddy room 2 or 3 minutes.
Mhm.
And if you send a child to me those 2 or 3 minutes, he's not up playing and baking and doing
Right.
those fun things that
Yeah,
we're doing.
that's a,
He needs to have a spot to, they need to have a
Understand.
spot to understand you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then don't play with them and give them candy and stuff, that's gonna make them wanna come to the buddy.
oh, yeah.
That shouldn't be a part of
That's-
the consequences, good or bad.
I was gonna bring that up with, right now, with when you do send a student to the office with extreme behaviors, they're not being, redirected in a way that'll help them improve behavior in the
Mhm.
classroom.
Mhm.
Snack time.
Yeah, they're playing with Legos.
If
So-
you take the kid, if you let the kid come to the office, cause sometimes you get sent back to class.
That's true.
Before you, they don't even try to redirect you, they send you right on back to class.
But that's why we need to go back though to having those steps before you go to the office.
Yeah.
We need the calm down corners and the safety corners in the classrooms to try to
And the
de-escalate
parent
the
contact,
situation.
don't forget the parent
Exactly,
contact.
the parent contact, you know, we need to have a plan, an action plan.
For the teachers.
For every
To
area.
redirect
Yeah, so
and
there's-
direct guidance.
There's one in the classroom, you do this and this and this and this first. And then, when that runs out, that's when you move to the next step, to the office or, you know, the revamped safety team, or whatever the next step will be. But there just needs to be a list, which will go back to the professional development. So that, and I think the most important thing in improving the teacher quality in classroom management is just making sure everybody has a clear understanding.
Mhm.
And it's the same, like you said before, Ms. Jones, everything just needs to be the same school-wide.
Yes.
This is what we're doing, no exceptions.
No,
Mhm.
You know? Because when you start adding in the exceptions, that's when things get confused and the teacher morale is going, we walking out.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I think that's how.
Fair, I'm gonna be fair.
Being
I agree.
consistent. Do you know if, do we have one? Do you know, I'm just curious now, we have a, plan?
No.
We don't, okay.
No, not that I'm aware of. And so my next step after providing mentors and resources is the action and response team. And the action and response team can be the safety team or the campus improvement team, but also, one with parents. Because I mean, students will go home and tell their parents this and this is happening. And so if we have a team of parents to come in monthly or every 6 weeks or whatever and say, this is what I'm hearing at home, what can we do as a team, parent and school, because you know, we gotta have that connection
Mhm.
to improve it. And then also a response team of students. We already have the ambassadors, so if your ambassadors met by pod or school-wide, and let the kids say, oh, this happened in recess, and nothing happened, you know, let the kids tell their side of the story.
Mhm.
I love that because sometimes you find that for example, in my class, we didn't have a lot of behaviors when I was around them, but if they went to a certain special class, oh, it went down. So-
Yeah,
Exactly, or you get the phone call from a parent that says, well, such and such said that this happened today, but as the teacher, you had no idea. Or the parent calls directly to the office, and then admin is calling you, and you're blindsided.
Yeah.
Because there was no communication with the students, so we need to open up the floor for the students to have
Yeah,
their input as well.
and I think the rules should be posted in our classroom, all of them should be typed up. Everybody's rules should be the same, posted in the classroom, posted in the hallway, the office,
like
a
that.
conferencing room, everywhere, they should be all over
It's in
the
the copy
hallway.
sent home as a contract.
Yeah.
And
So
they
that
sign,
you are
yes.
aware of, as the parent and the student. So that way, when you have to have those meetings, you can say, if you remember at Meet the Teacher, I had you sign our rules, and these are the following.
And you- and I gave you a
things
copy.
And I
You
gave
have-
you a copy.
And then the rules I talked about, when announcements come on, the whole first 6 weeks, say the
Yes,
rules.
yes.
And then even after that, remind students, okay, guys, we're seeing this, remember, rule number 4 is,
Yes.
be respectful, or, you know,
And then
whatever.
involves the whole campus, I like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that.
Which goes into holding kids accountable. If we're gonna hold them accountable for their consequences, we need to also hold them accountable and be rewarded. Because
Okay.
we have awesome students who
We
do the right
do.
thing,
All the time.
but we don't have the funds to be able to reward them the way we would like to as teachers.
Mhm.
If there's a school-wide reward system, I think we would see behavior.
And not just the,
And not just
the
the
stuff they put on the backpack,
backpack.
remember the,
Right,
not just those, something
But
that
that
the kids
even
actually
that
want.
wasn't consistent.
Yeah,
though.
it wasn't.
So everything just needs to be done in a consistent
Yes.
manner. The rewards need to be consistent,
Yes.
the consequences need to be consistent.
A reward ceremony every
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
simple.
Yes.
We're IB, so you got to learn the profiles. We just have, so this week, we're being principal. Such and such in Miss Jones' class was principal today. So, let's reward them.
I like this.
We're
Oh, we can
discussing the
tell.
class
Oh, right,
management
yeah,
plan
we
for
can
reform. It's okay. No, we're working, it's our leadership team.
I'm so sorry.
You're okay. But yeah, everything just needs to be consistent across the whole school. And then,
And then teachers need to know, oh, just because with those rules and consequences, parents won't be getting all these calls from little bitty stuff and
Mhm.
start answering the phone calls
Yeah.
and messages and stuff because they get so many every day.
that's right.
Child touched this child, you know, little petty stuff.
Exactly. It'll cut down
Which
on
builds so
a
much
lot.
mistrust between
It does.
school and
Mhm.
parents.
It does. So with the consistency, that'll cut out on a lot of the negative parent contact. And then you can throw in positive.
Yeah.
Like I saw there's one school district that do a good news call. So every Friday, there was a student that was the good news student of the week. And so they would call and be like, you know, such and such is doing awesome. You are a good news student. And then that builds the trust back up. Because when parents see that the school is calling, it's either my child's in trouble or sick. You know,
Yeah.
you want to provide some positive in there as well.
And it can be implemented because you don't have to use time after school. Teachers can use their conference time. Even though it's in the morning, you know, all week you've been dealing with this kid. So you can still call that parent and say something positive.
I think that increasing classroom management will help improve the teacher quality. And so then, after we do all these steps, we can go observe, see what's working, what's not working, and then provide feedback to the teachers, see what we need to change.
I really like that. I really
Yeah.
think that's something that we can.
Because the leadership team can observe, you know, the first couple of weeks and then allow others to go do observations.
I think that's enough.
Especially
peer observations. I'm
Peer
sorry.
observation, yeah.
That's voluntary.
Voluntarily peer observation.
And I say that because if I'm not so great with classroom management, and someone approaches me and says, "You really need to go wash this child." That's not really
Yeah.
what
Right.
they need return next year.
I get it. And
But it should be some type of system to where you can say, I noticed Ms. Charles is really great at this, is there a way that I can observe her?
And it's something that can be talked about in the team meetings too. Instead of just doing the Montessori lessons and IB lessons, talk about, I mean, we're supposed to have the RTI process anyway. Talk about the behaviors, talk about how to, change to the, behaviors, what to do in the team meetings too. Because a lot of teams have really strong, each team, you have a few really strong teachers that can just an ongoing.
But the strong teachers get abused, cause when they see the kids moving up to that grade level, the strong teachers
Yeah.
get all those misbehaving kids. And
Yeah.
we all get tired.
And you have to be careful, I think that even the strong teachers on these teams, they have to be careful on how they communicate with other teachers as
Yeah,
well.
I wasn't saying
Because-
take the keys, I was saying
Yeah.
share your, you've
Yeah,
given me a lot of ideas,
Yeah,
you know,
share your
and you don't
ideas.
have to take the key, you can say, hey, no, you
Well, they
keep
put 'em
thinking,
on the road.
you try.
Yeah,
your
Yeah,
best.
that's what
Yeah.
yeah, I see what you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about admin, pull them on your
Yeah.
class.
And it's not for you, that's not.
it needs to be spread out, I think, too. That'll help
Random,
improve
yes.
the quality. You know how we make the placement cards for the kids moving on to
Mhm.
first grade? We need some sort of system to, be like, call us daycares. To be like, how was this shot at daycare?
Right.
So that you don't have so many in one
But
room.
they know, cause we
They
hand
do.
place you in classrooms, and we're gonna put 5 behavior keys in yours,
Yeah.
4 stand in yours, cause we do this, we know, put them in Jones' room, put them
Yeah.
out, they're good,
So
they
that's
know.
something that shouldn't be done,
No.
because it
Burns
decreases
them out.
teacher quality, burn them out, and then, you're
And the
short.
placement cards need to be placed in the teacher's hand,
Yeah.
cause we don't even get the placement cards.
So we're not aware of what we're getting until.
And a stack of papers and everything.
Alright,
I think that's a
well,
really good,
I think that's some good steps. I'll write it all down and share it with you.